All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Open Source Entrepreneur. I am Casey Green, and this is my esteemed co-host, Jimmy Norlander. Jimmy, I am really, really excited for our conversation tonight. We have got a gentleman who I'm lovingly dubbing the entrepreneur of entrepreneurs. He is a business coach. He has a list of accolades a mile long that we'll get to in a little bit here. But the one and only Tyler Jensen. So really excited to have Tyler with us tonight and hear from him on. He has a unique system, a four-pillar system that helps people really beast themselves into a really cool spot in their life. So I'm really, really excited to hear from Tyler. But first, Jimmy, I want to start with just a quick carryover from our last episode. It's a little segment that I love to call Take It or Leave It. And my favorite part about Take It or Leave It is Jimmy has no idea what he's about to agree to either take or leave. But something that's been on my mind a lot recently, and we talked a little bit about it last week, Jimmy, was goals, the concept of goals. And it dawned on me that we have now passed National Quitters Day. So for those of you who don't know, National Quitters Day is the second Friday in January. Jimmy, I wanted to ask you, National Quitters Day, do you subscribe to it or not? Are you taking or leaving National Quitters Day?
Oh, that's a tough one. I might have to take that one.
You're taking it.
Do you know, I think I take National Quitters Day not necessarily 2 weeks in, but a month in.
Okay.
Then I'll take it. Now I'll push it along, but we should jot this down to see in like another month where everything's at.
See if people have like kept up with their goals or not.
Yeah.
So I, Jimmy, like I leave it, and this is why I leave it because the more I learn about goals and goal setting, and even just working on myself throughout the year, it is something that if you fail at something in the first 2 weeks, it's okay. It's
Hmm.
not the end of the world. I hate that we have, as a society, pigeonholed ourselves into saying, "Well, I'm 2 weeks in. I didn't go to the gym one day or 2 days in a row. Therefore, I'm just going to quit." So I'm going to leave it and say, like, that's something we have to move on from as a society. And listen, if you don't hit your goals in the first 2 weeks, that's okay. And that's normal. And my guess is that Tyler is going to actually agree with that here coming up pretty quickly. And so I agree, Jimmy. Unfortunately, people do back out. They do give up on their goals. But what I'm really looking for is that iterative improvement, meaning at the end of 2025, am I going to be a better human being than I was at the beginning of 2025? I may have missed some of my goals, but I guarantee I'm going to be better because I've been pushing and striving for something than if I would have just given up altogether. And Jimmy, it just happens, right? Like you go into the pantry, you get a snack maybe you shouldn't get, you miss a day at the gym, you miss reading a book, whatever your goal is, but that doesn't mean you're a quitter. And I'd anticipate, Jimmy, that a lot of the people you talk to in your practice have that mentality, right? You and I actually talked a little bit about that this morning about kind of a victimhood mentality, and that's not going to help anybody get anywhere. And I think those are the people that habitually quit.
I think saw that black or white thinking where either you're all in or you're all out, and people don't realize not everything's black and white. There's also gray in between.
Yeah. Yep. So, with the first 5 minutes of the podcast, I'm just going to say I love take it or leave it. Guys, don't give up on your goals. You're only a couple weeks into January. You've still got, I haven't done the math, but you still have, I don't know, 49, 48 weeks left of the year. Plenty of time to improve yourself.
For
That's all
sure.
I'm saying. Jimmy, I am really, really excited about what is about to happen. We are going to bring on a guest that I've been looking forward to since we got introduced. We actually met him, or you met him, Jimmy, on Connect Utah, a group here in Utah that is all about business, is all about entrepreneurs. And he said he was looking to come on podcast. And so I'm really excited to actually bring Tyler onto our podcast. As he's coming on, let me read to you this list of accolades that Tyler has going on. Tyler is the driving force behind the Top Performance Group, a premier business strategy platform for the busy entrepreneur. Tyler was named KSL's industry leader for business coaching in 2025, was Insurance Business Magazine's 2024 Rising Star, a personal risk manager and creator of the 4 pillars of top performance. He is a sought-after speaker and has inspired hundreds of business owners across the U.S. to live their best life. Please welcome Tyler Jensen! Tyler, what's going on, my friend? Oh, did we lose Tyler?
He- His accolades are so
He
good.
he bounced that fast.
The,
Tyler, I'll
the,
bring
the,
you back on, brother. Don't you worry. Like I
well,
saw him, I saw him trying to catch the tripod. It's okay. Tyler, you're coming back. Come back to us, Tyler. There he is.
The,
There
the
he
Yes.
is.
accolades were so
Hallelujah.
good he shut down the system.
What?
He's like, I can't handle it. It's too exciting. I'm out.
What an entrance! And couldn't set up the Instagram and it fell over.
Yeah, Tyler, welcome to the Open Source Entrepreneur. It is so great to have you on. As I was going through your media guide and learning a little bit about you, I was so excited. Jimmy and I are nerds about business. We're nerds about entrepreneurship. And as I tell people all the time, Jimmy is a serial entrepreneur. He's got an amazing clinic up and down the Wasatch Front. Been in mental health for a very long time and just rocking it. Has a 7-figure business. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have helped businesses scale, and I do tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing and promotions every year for different companies. And so we just love to nerd out and talk business. And so when Tyler, we came across what you have going on, I was so excited to talk to you. How did I'm just curious to know right out the gate, how did your like entrepreneurial spirit, where was that born? How did you get into it? How did you get to where you are now?
Casey, I would say my entrepreneurial spirit started right out of the womb.
Okay.
Man, as a kid, I was just always hustling. And everything from lemonade stands to owning a lawn care business when I was 14. And I'd even have the clients pick me up and drive them to their house so I could do their lawn.
Amazing.
I was just always finding ways to create value. And in high school, that was my dream. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Did DECA in high school, went to nationals in DECA, placed in the top 25 for entrepreneurship. So it was always a vision. It was always something that I wanted to pursue and create. And after serving a 2-year mission, I actually came back, opened a business, did artwork and design,
Nice.
did that through college, as well as started coaching and training. So I was a corporate trainer for Weber State for a few years, and then opened an insurance practice, ran that for a few years as well, and then got pulled into training again and did consulting for insurance agents all across the U.S., but mainly in Utah for several years until I opened this consulting and coaching firm here.
And that is amazing. So literally, like, besides the fact that you like said, "Hey, listen, I want to like do the lemonade stand. I want like whether you're mowing lawns or whatever," but then you convince your clients to pick you up and take you to their house. Like that's absolutely amazing. So like not only entrepreneurial, but you had that like sales mentality too, that beast mentality where you're like, "I will not be denied," which I think helps make up a really solid entrepreneur. I have been so impressed as I kind of went through things and started to look at the like you're really well known for your 4 pillars of top performance. And it's so intriguing because there are so many people who, as I looked at it, like have maybe 1 portion or 2 portions of like of some of these qualities. But explain to everybody, what is the 4 pillars of top performance?
Great question, Casey. So the 4 pillars came from my study of top performance I did for several years, because I was sitting in my insurance agency, and it was just before Christmas, and I was sitting at the dismal $3,000 that came into my business account, looking at my payroll, and they didn't add up.
Yeah.
And I was writing payroll checks out of my personal checking account just before Christmas. Now, I had a good month the month prior, but the thing about insurance is if a policy cancels, you have to back pay premium.
Okay.
And so the largest policy I'd ever written to date canceled that month before, completely wiped out all the commissions I had coming into the business. And so there I was thinking, how do I continue? How do I progress? And I sat there in a state of complacency, and I didn't know what to do. I was belittling myself. I had all these negative impacts. I had self-doubt. I had imposter syndrome. Even came to a point where I said, my wife set up her own insurance policy. What am I doing in insurance? I thought of everything, right? And then my wife simply said, she said, "Hey, sweetheart, you're going to figure it out. Go provide for the family." And it was that moment right there where I realized that top performance starts with a single choice. Do we become victims of our circumstances or victors of our opportunities? And so that's what started me on the path of studying top performance. So from then on, I went and studied for several years what top performers were doing. The psychology, the mindset, the sales, the systems, the understanding, and the focus. And Casey, throughout that study, I realized that there are 4 things that are firing when people are in a peak state.
Okay. Now, like, hopefully you're going to break down the 4 things for
Yep.
us. Nice. Let's hear it.
So the first one is optimism.
Okay.
When we look at the word top performance, top is a proto-grammatic word, which means topa, which means summit. And performer is an old French word, parfournir, which means to do. So Casey, when you look at those 2 words together, my mind instantly goes to the summit of a mountain. Now, the thing about summiting a mountain, which I love doing, that's one of my wife and I's favorite hobbies, is hiking.
Oh, I love hiking.
And
my wife and I do the same thing. Summertime, not so much winter, but summertime, we're all about it.
Yep, absolutely. And when you get to that peak, you literally experience the best view in the world.
Yeah.
It is just incredible to look over and just see for miles. You literally get the best view possible. And that is a top performer. It's one who summits a mountain. It's one that does the work, takes the action, endures the difficulties of the trail to get there. Now, when you look at the word optimism, that's the Latin word for best. So that's the funny thing. It's not positive. It's not happy. Those came later on in its etymology of the word. But its root word was best. So it's, how does this item have the best possible outcome for our future? So when you start with optimism within top performance, you're doing what's best. You're creating the best version of yourself. You have the best attitude. That's where it derived to that positivity. You're doing the best experiences for your customers. You're utilizing the best processes. You're always refining. And when setbacks happen, you're taking the best possible road. You're making that choice to become a victor. What is the next best thing? So with everything in top performance, it starts with optimism.
Oh, I love that. Matter of fact, Jimmy and I were just talking about almost the exact opposite this morning. So you don't know this, but Jimmy, one of the fun things, and part of the reason Jimmy and I started the podcast was we're neighbors actually, and in our neighborhood we have I think it has to be an unusually large quantity of entrepreneurs, business owners. And so like their stories are fascinating and we just got to know people and understand, right? And so we started because we wanted to hear more about people's businesses and the opportunities people have to make a living doing things other than like, I grew up with my dad like pounding into me like, go to school and get a good job. Like that was it, right? It was never like, hey, you can do all these other cool things and you can achieve great success by doing other cool things, right? But this morning, Jimmy and I were talking about the opposite of like, what happens when you don't have optimism? What happens when you're not standing on top of the mountaintop? And you've probably read this book, but there's a book called The Four Agreements. I happen to have it right here. And it talks about how we are actually addicted to being the way that we are. And so we are addicted. If we are an inherently negative person, if we suffer from jealousy, if we suffer from victimhood, we are going to become addicted to that type of mentality and that philosophy. Now, what I love about what you're saying, Tyler, is the exact opposite can be true. Once you learn how to harness your superpowers, once you learn to be a top performer, I am like 100% positive that you will be addicted to being a top performer, right? Like you said, when you summit the mountain and you look across and you see the view, you see the valley, you see the river, the lake, whatever your payoff is, that is addicting. It's 100% addicting. And so I love it. I love everything you're saying. Okay, so we start with optimism.
Yes.
Then what?
So let's talk about the exact opposite to start. Okay, so what is keeping people from top performance?
I think everybody wants to know
next
that.
thing. That was the next thing that I realized studying these 4 pillars. And this is the biggest hidden cost to businesses today. And it's complacency.
Yes.
Complacency is the biggest hidden cost of business, and it's the exact opposite of a top performer. Now, looking at this and studying this, Casey and Jimmy, there are 3 models of complacency that individuals find themselves in. And they'll experience them at different times, and we're all probably right now being affected by at least one of the 3.
Give it to us.
So the first one is what's called complacently busy. This is the entrepreneur that is all over the place every single day. They are so busy that they even boast about their busyness rather than actually doing work.
Yep.
And everything runs by chaos. Now, when things run by chaos, you're going to see your highs, you're going to see your lows. You're going to see successes, you're going to see failures. But overall, your business is going to be complacent because there's no growth, there's no progression, there's no actual working on the business. And so what happens is our brain grabs hold of all of those failures, everything that didn't work, everything that was wrong. I'm sure we can all attest to this. We come home and your wife asks you how your day went, and the first thing that comes into your mind is all the negative things that happened that day. And the reason that is because of that negativity bias, which you mentioned.
Yeah.
Our brain keeps those at our forefront to keep us safe. And so in order to overcome that first complacency model, being complacently busy every single day, is you implement the best systems. So that's our pillar number 2.
So tell, before you move on to that, that's one intriguing concept that I see a lot in businesses, and I call it the touch versus move, right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs in that chaos, they run around and they touch a lot of the projects.
Yep.
They just kind of like check in on it. They don't ever actually move it, right?
Yep.
And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs feel that chaos, feel that busyness, is they're just constantly touching things and not moving them, which creates a lot of chaos, because then you miss deadlines, you miss a lot of things to push your business along. Sorry to cut you off, but that was like in my head. I just kept thinking, these are the entrepreneurs that do that.
Really quick, Casey, before you go into number 3, Tyler, when people go back and watch this, they think, okay, my business is really well. I don't have the chaos, but they might really have it. So if you were to tell people, I think their business is running nice and smooth, but there's actually chaos in there, how would you tell them, sorry, there is chaos, because if we don't know what it is, we can't fix it. So what are some chaoses that you see in business that people don't really identify?
Now, that's a great question. So we actually start with an assessment with their business. When we work with individuals one-on-one, we have them take the chaotic business assessment.
Nice.
And it goes through, I haven't counted how many things are on here, but we go through all things sales and marketing, from sales appointments to sales processes to follow-up, to cross-sales, to referrals, to social media, to paid advertising, marketing, customer feedback, customer retention. That's just the sales and marketing section. Okay. And we have these that we have them through. I'll read them here. So the first one, you rank them from 1 to 10. 1 is complete chaos, meaning you handle everything yourself without any structure. 2 is mental process only, which is I manage everything but rely on an informal process that I can keep in my head. 3 is basic documentation, which is I use simple spreadsheets or have notes written down to guide your tasks. 4 is chaotic delegation. I have an employee managed tasks, but they lack a structured process. And it goes all the way down to I'll start with 9 and 10, but 9 is independent operations, where you have processes that run effectively without your involvement. And number 10 is strategic oversight, which is a senior leader oversees that area to ensure all systems operate at optimal capacity.
Yeah. So
as you go through that, you're going to discover multiple ways that your business is running by chaos in some form or another. Because we go through everything from the customer experience and service to the communication and relationship management, financial management, employee and HR processes, strategic planning and development, leadership and organizational culture. So behind all those categories, Jimmy, we're going to find and open some minds as to areas that chaos is present.
You're peeling back that onion of the business.
Yep.
And I'm really curious, as you go through that, I can only imagine that you walk into an organization and you say, hey, listen, you brought me in so that I can level things up. So you have to have a certain amount of vulnerability, right, as a business owner or as an organization to accept the fact that you might not be doing everything correctly. How do you because this happens, I'm sure, not only for you when you walk in and help transform a business, but even from like a manager to an employee level. That feedback cycle, that's saying like, hey, listen, you've done a great job, but you're slightly off here. How do you deal with that person when they're like, and the walls go up, they get defensive, and they're like, hang on, you don't know what you're talking about. Here's why you don't know what you're talking about. And like, I can only imagine that makes it far more difficult to change your organization. How do you overcome those like, I don't believe you, you're wrong?
So that's gonna come back to the order of which we go through these. Because first off, we establish the framework, right? And we open up that vulnerability, because leadership starts with being able to be vulnerable. And when you look at that, we teach what's called leadership through self-worth.
I love that.
And when we focus on self-worth, which is the perception of value, our self-worth is how we view our lives in relation to our values. If we're living our values, we feel our self-worth. If we're going against our values, that hinders our self-worth. And eventually that turns into shame. Yes, buddy.
This is my favorite thing ever. I love the fact that we've got people making appearances. Like, this is, you get to see firsthand, like, dads and entrepreneurs, and like, we got a life, guys. We just have
We're doing a podcast, okay? You guys just want to say hi quick, and then I'll fix it after, all right?
Hi.
What's up? You got an awesome dad.
You have an awesome dad. You guys are lucky.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
They're
cute little kiddos.
My wife has an inactivity tonight, so I'm on half dad duty. They're in the toy room right there. So
I love it.
Dude, I was thinking you're like for business owners, you're like the Gordon Ramsay. You know, when he goes into the kitchen and he just starts destroying it. You know, like, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what you're doing wrong. Like, but by the end, if they listen, they have like a beautiful spotless kitchen and customers are coming in. You're like the Gordon Ramsay of business.
I like that. I'll take it. It gets a little dirty,
Yeah.
but it starts with that mindset to accept it, right? And to accept that, because when we start with, like I said, I was talking about leadership, and leadership through self-worth is focusing on that aspect. It really kind of dives into 3 points of creating a healthy structure of learning and growth and development. And those go into building trust, showing integrity, and developing respect. And part of that developing respect is the concept and the aspect that every individual needs to feel valued and respected and heard. Okay? But that doesn't mean all ideas be validated, they need to be heard. And so when we create this learning, when we implement the process to overcome our second complacency model, which is the natural complacency, we're going to create a culture of learning and discovery. Because the second complacency model is what we call the natural complacent. And this is when things aren't working.
Yeah.
Or when we have setbacks, or when we have trials, or somebody tells us, Jimmy, that something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it invokes that negativity bias that is going to induce fear. And so when fear is present, the body succumbs to a complacent state because it wants to keep us safe. And when we look at that behind leaders or employees, individuals spend 2 hours of their working day in a complacent state due to that fear. So they need to make a change to the business. They procrastinate that for the next 2 hours because they're fearful. They just want to sit there and think about it. Somebody has to make a phone call, but their brain says, hey, you know, Casey, last time you made a phone call, somebody yelled at you, so you probably shouldn't do it. And so you build up your courage for the next 10, 20 minutes to try and make that phone call in all of these different aspects. So 2 hours a day, people are spending in a complacent state. And like I said originally, that's a big hidden cost of business. You look at an average employee in the United States, $18 an hour, 2 hours a day, 250 working days. That translates to $9,600 every single year per employee. So when I come into businesses, I was just chatting with the dentist last Friday, and we calculated his at just over $200,000
In lost
costs due to complacency. But to overcome that second complacency model, Jimmy, is you instigate the third pillar, which is power. Now, power, going back to our etymology, this is my nerdy side.
Yes, nerd out.
We all know the phrase, knowledge is power. Okay? It was attributed to Francis Bacon all the way back in the 1500s, yet it is not correct today. And here's why.
How so?
If knowledge was power, since AI has access to the most knowledge, wouldn't it be the most powerful thing in the world?
Yeah.
But it's not. What really turns the key is the ability to apply. So, power, by etymology, means action. Wisdom, by etymology, means action. Wisdom is your ability to apply knowledge correctly. So, without application, it's just potential power. So people could listen to this podcast, they could get advice, they can look at what we're doing, they could look at our processes, they could look at these setbacks and these failures, but if they don't take those opportunities to learn from them and apply it back into the system, it just sits there and festers as your negativity bias. So we create a process called our STEP process that helps you transition everything that the world views as a failure into an opportunity to learn, grow, and see more successes in your life.
I love that. How do you help organizations understand? Because I try to drill this into my employees that, listen, I actually want you to go make mistakes. For me, that's how we learn. That's how we find the things that don't work. That's how we progress a business quickly, right? You will not find I don't believe there's a quicker way to progress your business than to try things and fail. As long as you learn your lessons from that, you're golden, right? How do you help people understand that failing is okay? I've tried to create a safe environment to do that. How do you help organizations understand that is okay?
It starts with leaders being able to admit that to employees. So if the leader can't be vulnerable enough to say, I failed, it's going to hurt. So when we take the concept of every individual's ideas should be heard, they also need to receive the recognition behind it. So Casey, if you gave me an idea for the business and we ran with it and it was a complete failure, I take the blame because as a leader, I approved that decision.
You greenlit that.
But if your idea excels beyond belief, me as a leader, I'm going to put all the credit and recognition on you.
Yep. I agree 100%.
Because the leader no longer needs to collect gold stars. They're the one giving gold stars.
Yep.
The leader is the one that serves.
And the crazy thing about that is it is amazing when you do that, how much that endears your employees to you, how much more they're willing, and I don't mean this like the Kool-Aid man, but how much more willing they are to run through a brick wall for you because you've built up that trust with them. You said, listen, if we fail, we're going to fail together and I will take the blame, right?
Yep.
And I've done that with my employees before as well. I say, listen, go make the mistakes. If it doesn't work out, and this might be too crass, but like nobody's on the operating table. This is not a life or death situation. We will recover from whatever it is. And when you say that, you give them permission to go fail, oh man, and if they fail, you take the blame, even better. But when they succeed, oh my gosh, the emotional deposit that you make in that relationship is huge. I love that. Keep going, keep going. I'm loving what you're saying.
And so that's that process. So if you imagine this in kind of a visual framework, that's usually what we show. You have your system and it works and it doesn't. And so that sets us on those two paths. It sets us on the path of complacency down here, path of top performance up here. So then you had your failure, your fear, your complacency. But we changed and we moved up to power, which applied back into your systems when you saw success. Now, successes, those drive focus, which is the exact opposite of fear. They sit on the opposite continuum on the framework. There is no fear when the focus is clear. Because fear and focus can't exist at the same time. When you have direct focus, you know where you're going. You have strategic plans. You have a vision. You have goals. I know you guys mentioned that at the beginning of the podcast, is goal setting.
Yep.
But with that focus, you need to understand that focus for yourself and each individual employee. Because the employee needs to know what their focus is. They need to know what their values are. They need to know what their purpose is. Yep. They need to have that sense of fulfillment, not just what the business's fulfillment is.
Agreed.
They need to have their own personal fulfillment within the business.
And how do you help them achieve that as a leader, right? How do you help them achieve and feel that success?
So that comes down to, we implement that when we talk about our performance reviews, which we invite business owners to hold those every month with their direct reports, and from there they hold them with theirs, and you have that chain, so you have to meet with everybody in your organization, you're meeting with the people below you,
yeah.
But then you know what's going on, right? But then it starts with the daily processes as well, because individuals go too long without receiving praise. We're honestly like dogs. We want a treat every single time we do something good.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We need to treat people.
That's right.
And really that can just come from a simple compliment. But it needs to be on a daily basis. Not employee of the month, not here's your award at the end of the year, but what can you do on a daily basis that's personalized to recognize those individuals? And that's where you start building their own self-worth.
Yeah. Because
they're recognizing it, they're achieving it, they're seeing it within themselves. And it's driving their sense of love and connection and belonging. And that's the beauty of leadership through self-worth.
Yeah, and
your employees feel that.
And one thing that I really appreciate that you said is, because I think when we talk about performance reviews, you said performance reviews, right? And I've been in companies where when you mention performance review, everything kind of tightens and you get like a little nervous, and then you start to like think in your mind, like, how can I turn that one project into like a 4 or 5, whatever your rating system is. And then you're thinking about, I did these things, those are probably 1s or 2s. And then you have to try to guess what your supervisor is going to say. And so I love the concept of saying, let's look at this regularly and let's turn the performance reviews from something that's inherently, I think, negative to most people at the end of the year, and my salary increase is going to be based off of it. It's a big, scary to do, to just a regular way that we can communicate, we can grow the business together. This is a good thing. And that's why I tell my employees about feedback as well, because when you hear the word feedback, you inherently, again, kind of go, oh boy, I've done something wrong. Yep, like everything goes up, right? And so I tell my employees, and every single one-on-one I have weekly one-on-ones with my employees, I always am the first to ask for feedback. And I make it very clear that feedback can be good or negative. But I also allow them to be in a vulnerable space to say, here's feedback for you, boss, on what you can do better or what you've done great. And so when they see you reciprocating that both ways, it's amazing how the walls come down. And so I love that you said, like, let's meet together monthly. Let's get things figured out monthly to help this thing grow or change or shift or whatever we need to do. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I think to go on top of that too is, as the leader, if you're asking for feedback, then they're more likely to accept your feedback when you give it
Yeah.
to them. Because I'll do that all the time in my staff meetings. I'll be like, hey, we want to be the best counseling center that there is. We're going to screw up. So what do we need to do, or what do I need to do better to make this a good counseling? As the ones that speak up, and the other ones that are like, they're reserved because they're afraid if they say something. But once one person speaks up, the rest do. I mean, the one that
Opens the
criticize,
door.
yeah, the ones that do criticize, I fire them on the spot and then I just replace them. But
We will not tolerate that. No back toucher, Jimmy. You're out.
but you go back to like, a compliment each time is, in today's world, there's no excuse for that. I mean, a simple text can go a long ways. Like, good job, I noticed this. Hey, you got a Google review, whatever it might be. There's no excuse in today's day on with, like you said, with technology to give that open compliment.
Well, and the power that comes when you praise in public, oh my
Yep.
gosh, it goes such a long ways. I remember when I first started the job that I'm currently in, like we do promotion that we have to stay up late at night to like switch things over, and we operate on Pacific time, so it's even later. It's like 1 a.m. And I implemented. I said we need to be up to make sure that everything switches over, and this wasn't inherently a practice that they had done. And after that, the employees that were up, I sent a message to the uppers. I said, hey, we had a great transition. So and so did this. So and so did this, and it went such a long way because we were in this together. And I praised them in public, and they were so appreciative of having that recognition. It's amazing. It just goes a long ways.
Yep. And
Okay, keep going. I think we're on pillar 3. Probably wrapping up pillar 3, going on to pillar 4, baby.
Yeah. So pillar 3 was the power, and pillar 4 is the focus. And that's what keeps us there. And then when we have those 4 pillars operating, you experience top performance. So we've all experienced top performance at one point in our life. Yeah. And that's one thing I've noticed is I've seen it in all aspects. I've seen it in offices where company standpoint, they're not top performers. I've seen it in individuals who are just starting it out. I've seen it in athletes. I've seen it in people who are there consistently because you have the correct mindset. So think of like your best day in business, right? We all have one of those days where it's just like, oh, that was incredible. And we told everybody how great it was. You had the correct mindset. You were looking at things in the best outcomes. You had the optimism. You were following a system of some point, right? Whether it's an operation, whether it's a sales process, you're executing in your power, you're applying your knowledge, people saw value in that. You had direct focus because you know what you wanted to achieve and you accomplished that, and you had that feeling of top performance.
Yeah.
And now this is where the third model comes into play. And I'll tell you a story that illustrates it really well. So I was up on the top of a mountain. Mountains can teach you a lot about life. I'll tell you that right now. And I was hunting. So if that offends any of the listeners, I don't need to hear about it later.
We're good.
And we were stalking, my buddy and I, we were stalking this buck for a few days. We knew exactly where it bedded down. We knew it moved from the north to the south over this ridge, and it bed down in the trees throughout the day. And so it was muzzle loader, so we had to get within a few, 150-yard shot or so. And so we had snuck down into this hill point, kind of a cliff on one side. The deer was bedded down just underneath the cliff. And we knew that after it had eaten, it would cross over right in front of us to go to the trees. And we would have had a 70-yard shot right at the buck. Now, my buddy's dad was watching it. He was spotting up on the other side on the walkie-talkie, letting us know what was going on. And I remember sitting there. I had the gun ready to go. We were in perfect position. And I heard this voice say, "Move now and go after the buck. You'll lose it." And I was like, what? Like, no, like it's perfect spot. I'm good right where I'm at. 5 minutes later, I hear a voice again. It says, "Move now or you'll lose the deer." And I was like, no, we got it spotted. We're watching it. It's still eating. It's not going anywhere. We're in a good spot. I'm good. And then a third time said, now I call it the spirit. Other people are religious. You can call it intuition, but I believe it's from God because it quoted scripture to me, and it said, all good things come from God. This is a good thought. Go after the deer. You're going to lose it. And I sat there, and I said, I'm good. And not a minute later, because we could have moved over and taken the shot about 150 yards down the cliff. But a minute later, a hunter came up the valley, the wind changed, the deer caught scent, and it ran directly up the rock face, and we lost the deer.
Dang.
And I realized that I was sitting in a complacent state. And it's what business owners experience when they feel like they're in the best spot. They feel like they're good. They become what's called the self-made complacent. And they think they're in a state of top performance, and yet they sit there and they stay stagnant and they lack progression. And you're missing out on the abundance that comes from completing that cycle and always seeking new ways to improve. And that comes in the form of education and mentorship and daily discovery.
I love that. When you're
Pretty
dealing
cool.
with business owners who need mentorship, obviously that's something that you offer. What are some other ways that you recommend beyond working with you, Tyler, that business owners can progress? Let's assume they can't afford to work with you, right? And we'll let you here at the end. We'll have you drop kind of your contact information, so if people want to get a hold of you, we can make that connection for you. But what are some like daily things people can be doing to help get out of potential complacency? How can they move forward? Are there books or podcasts or things that you recommend doing?
Books.
Yes.
Books.
Constant learning.
Go to Goodwill. You can find a book for $2.
I love it.
And just start learning. That's what I love. Education means discovery. That's its root word, is discovery. And so we always, whenever I get a coaching client, I establish the expectation of 15 minutes. That's it. 15 minutes of personal education and discovery every single day. And you start that the rest of your life.
I love it. I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I'll give you a second to think about it. What are the 5 top books that you recommend that anybody that's looking to kind of progress, to move on, to break out of a funk? What are the top 5 that they should be looking at getting right now? And while you're thinking about that, it's really interesting that you said 15 minutes, because I actually heard a study the other day of compounding time. It was actually a little less time. It was like 5, I think like an extra 5 minutes a day. And the compound effect that has over somebody who will read 5 minutes. They were specifically talking about a sports analogy where if your son or daughter practices just 5 extra minutes a day, how much farther ahead they'll be than their peers.
Yeah.
And that concept is so powerful. And I actually rearranged my morning routine so that I could come home and have an hour to myself. So Jimmy and I are crazy. We both work out at Vasa. We're both there at 4 in the morning. I put in about 90 minutes. I come home and I've still got anywhere between 60 to 90 minutes to work on myself to make sure that I'm progressing properly. And so that's amazing, that compounding effect that can have. Now, I hope I gave you enough time. Top 5 books.
Top 5 to get you out of a funk. One I would recommend, it's called Take the Stairs by Rory Vaden. Great one about procrastination and how to overcome procrastination within our life.
Which is brutal, right? So many people suffer from that.
Yep.
Especially during college football.
Yes.
Yep. Another great one for leaders would be Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
Great book.
Wonderful book to help establish that leadership and understanding self-worth for employees. Another one that I love is called The Power of Moments by Dan and Chip Heath. And they talk about the difference between customer service and customer experience. And then, how many have I said? 1, 2, 3. The next one I would recommend would be Buy Back Your Time by Dan Merrill.
Yes.
A great book about understanding time and in relation to time management. And then a great one, looking on this side.
This is where I was hoping I was queuing you up, and you're like, and this one by Tyler Jensen.
Hey, you know, that one's coming. We are in the works. I do have it outlined. Me and my business strategist, we're looking at doing a book tour towards this next couple of years and trying to get a publisher. But so I'll hold off on that one. But
yes.
Another wonderful one, of course, for systems is the E-Myth, just classic understanding systems behind a business. And then one that a lot of people probably
a bonus edition
haven't read as much would be
Suspense.
There's so many. We'll go on my bookshelf.
It's awesome that you have so many books that you're trying to choose which one it is.
There's what's that right there? Right there. There it is. It's a little one. The Go-Giver.
Oh, yeah.
The Go-Giver.
So
great one to understand service behind the business.
Well, and Jimmy and I talk about that frequently, the power of giving back to people that you serve, whether that's in your organization or outside of your organization, the power of giving to neighbors. It's amazing how when you begin to do that, how it just circles back all of the time. I told Jimmy in one of our earlier podcasts, I spent in my previous company so much, like I was the marketing of sales or the director of sales and marketing. And I spent so much time talking to clients that even if they weren't qualified, I'd say, okay, this is like 3 steps that I would do to begin to get to a spot where you're qualified and we can work together. And it was amazing how frequently those customers, once they did those things, would come back because we had poured and invested time and love into that relationship.
Yep.
And so trying to give back to people and building that community off of love and giving is so powerful. I love that book. That's such a great book. Really, really good recommendation. Okay, I have to ask, I guess you don't have to tell, but at the end of I love to end the podcast this way. We have 2 things that we do at the end of every podcast. One of them is, I love to know, so you have done a variety of things. Currently, you are a personal coach. You've got a wonderful system set up. I love to know the dirty little secrets that people don't know about business, right? So you've become kind of a personal coach. What is, and really just pull from any of your industries because you've done the insurance thing, you've done a lot of things. What's one dirty little secret about an industry that you were in that people just don't know about?
Woo!
One of my favorite ones was we had a chiropractor on, and he said people fart in my office all the time when I adjust them. That was amazing. That was one of my favorite things. Like, I never thought of that before. It's hilarious. We had a marketing agency lady on. Her name was Ellie. She was amazing. She said it's amazing how many business owners just kind of stumble into success and they don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They just keep trying to do something. So give us a dirty little secret.
I would say a dirty little secret that I've seen in a lot of businesses is that people are blinded by their own product.
Yes.
Yeah, you see that on Shark Tank all the time.
And I always show, whenever I explain this principle, I show a funny video. And an employee drops a pad out of her purse. And another employee, a male, he doesn't know what it is and asks, what is that? And she says, well, it's a computer monitor wipe. And he's like, well, my monitor is extremely dirty. Can I borrow one? And there he is, and his boss walks in, and he's cleaning his monitor with a pad. And his boss looks at him and says, what are you doing? He says, oh, just using these new cleaning monitors that Nikki gave us. And he said, you know what works really well? The overnight pads. They sleep even better. And
Yes.
people get in that sense where because their product can do something, it doesn't mean it's the best fit for the client.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot when it came to, a lot of businesses that do sales is they're blinded by their product. And just because it can serve that client's need, it doesn't mean the client needs the best. And so talk about optimism. You need to sell with optimism. You sell with the best. If you don't have it, refer to somebody else.
I love it. Hey, Tyler, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast with us. If people want to get in contact with you, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, easiest way is tylerjjensen.com. That is my personal website. It links us to all of the different items. On there, we'll actually give you a free training as well. We'll give you our proprietary goal-setting format, which is the STAR goal-setting format. Allows you to break through expectations and see more success and more optimism in your goal setting. So sign up for that free training. It's completely free. Just sign up for our blog posts each Friday, and away you go.
Okay, I love it. If you guys want to level up in 2025, Tyler's your guy. Visit his website. One more time, Tyler, it's at?
tylerjjensen.com.
tylerjjensen.com. Thank you so much for being with us and dropping knowledge on us on how we can get to the top of our very own mountain, how we can ditch procrastination, how we can get out of chaos. I love it. You guys make sure you hit Tyler up. To end this episode, Jimmy, we are going to come to you, and as always, end with our mental health moment, brought to you by Deseret Counseling.
All right, so mental health moment, it kind of ties along with everything that's been going on today, is at the end of the day, when you get home, it might sound stupid, it's simple. Write down 3 things that were great that day. No matter how simple that they are, studies show just writing something good throughout the day, especially at the end of the day, especially if it's a stressful week, lower stress, it helps the depression. And then it kind of changes that mindset. Like, okay, even though it was a stressful day, it's all crazy. At the end of the day, there's some good things to come home to.
Love it. Guys, write down your 3 things. Jimmy, I kid you not, I carry this around in my back pocket for that very purpose. My mantra this year that you guys can adopt if you want to is good things just happen to me. So I make sure I write them down so I remember those good things happen to me. But anyway, Jimmy, thank you for the mental health moment. Tyler, thank you for being with us. You guys, it was wonderful. Have a good night.
We'll see you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks.